On December 9th, Transport Canada introduced a mandatory new privacy notice and declaration for medical examinations. And get this, it became effective the very next day. Suddenly, 60,000 licensed pilots across the country were being asked to hand over their private medical information, including lab results, pharmacy records, and entire medical histories, with no clear limits on scope or time frame. If they dare refuse to sign, then their medical certification and thus their ability to fly could be revoked overnight. One commercial pilot is speaking out, saying that this rollout came with no consultation, no warning, and raises serious questions about privacy, oversight, and whether this is just the first step in a broader government push for biometric and medical data surveillance. He asked to remain partially anonymous, but shared his perspective on what this mandate really means for pilots, for privacy, and potentially for the nation as a whole. Check it out.
One of the biggest things was the fact that it was effective the very next day. There was no lead time. There didn't appear to be any stakeholder consultation. Our union was very surprised by it, and even speaking with some of the transport doctors, they were very surprised with it. They didn't know it was coming, and just the extent compared to the previous form, which was a short paragraph that we signed as part of our medical, which was quite thorough. There's 11 or 12 different categories, which of course includes cardiovascular and otherwise. But this is very, very extensive in reach compared to what we had before. And obviously, we're very concerned with our fitness to fly as pilots. We want to ensure that we're being responsible to the traveling public as well as ourselves and our families. So it's not an effort to get out of proper screening. But this, as you pointed out, says including but not limited to, and then proceeds to list everything I can personally think of when it comes to medical health. Laboratory reports, medical test results, medical record systems, meaning the entire record system, I would assume, in the country, and pharmacy databases. There's no start date to this. There's no end date. And previous to that, it says I authorize Transport to collect and review any additional information about me from third parties. So the third party piece is also very concerning because it's not defined. We don't know what those third parties are.
This means that theoretically anyone, past or future, could access a pilot's entire medical history, and not only is that concerning, it's unprecedented.
Keep in mind that this is also something some of us have been advocating for. Presently in Canada, we're the only nation I know of in the world, certainly in the bigger countries that are allowing telemedical. So we actually every other year are able to just have a phone conversation with our transport doctor. So some have explained this as an effort to be more thorough, which I would like to believe. It's just kind of odd that we're within this construct where we're doing phone medicals, that this is something that's been brought out. So the fact that it wasn't discussed with stakeholders is also concerning. And as I think you alluded to earlier, we're always, I would think in Canada now, given our concerns over a number of issues, thinking about trajectory. Where is this leading more broadly? And trying to think outside just our own little silos. So if I take myself out of that and think, well, if it was another industry, what would I think? And I understand why if it's not affecting you right now, you might not be concerned. But I'm not thinking about this just as pilots. I'm thinking about this as the nation as a whole. We do have a right to privacy.
Adding insult to injury is the fact that, unlike a credit card, health data cannot be reset. And in the wrong hands, its value is staggering. This is why pilots and the public should be paying attention.
We've seen plenty of breaches of data that's been assured to whoever's data's been handed over that it's going to be handled with care and otherwise. But we've seen in the past, even within the airports over the past 5 years, that there's been things done as far as facial recognition with the traveling public and otherwise. So trust is not exactly super high. And I guess to that point, the great question, and again, we tried not to overreact or be outraged by this, to sit back and think, okay, why is this happening? The problem is there's far more questions than there are answers right now. It's not entirely clear why this has been done. And again, to have it effective the very next day with no warning to any of the people involved is highly unusual. There's explanations that, well, they're moving to a digital format for licensing, and this is just essentially crossing the I's and dotting the T's. The problem is it's not. It's not replicating what was in place before. It's kicking the door wide open with absolutely unlimited information to what appears to be all of your private medical information going back to, I'm not sure when, there's no date. Does this go back to the day I became a professional pilot, and when does it finish? That's not really answered either. This is getting a little bit into the weeds, but because this is tied with your medical, we need to do a simulator ride for licensing, and then we also do a medical, and then they stamp your license essentially, and the medical ensures that you can carry on and go flying. And I didn't mention this before, but twice in this one form, it says if you don't sign this form, then the medical is essentially discontinued and you don't get the stamp, which means you don't get to fly anymore, an airplane in Canada, period, not just for your present company. The problem is, because this is the way it was rolled out, seemingly innocuous, you have to click on a link and then you have to wade through font size, I don't know, 6 or 7 on what appears to be a fairly boring government document. And because if you're due, let's say September of 2026, there's plenty of other things in your life that you're concerned about, and so guys aren't engaged on it. I would say, to a man and woman, the people that I've spoken with, once you take the few minutes to explain it, they are quite concerned with it, and engagement is ticking up that way. But because of how it was rolled out, which was also during Christmas, essentially, when Transport wasn't in the office and our union was minimal staffing as well, it's been a little bit slow. So we are trying to get the word out. So an individual I know went in to do his medical, read the form and said, this seems a little bit over the top, I don't want to sign it. And they said, I'm not stamping your medical. I mean, it's that simple. And so if we don't get the word out, this is what happens. And so there has been an uptick, certainly, in engagement with ALPA, and they are doing what they can with Transport. Unfortunately, the wheels of government, and it would seem Transport is certainly part of that, they grind rather slowly. And so there is some concern. People that are due in January have been messaging me today, asking where things are at, and if there's any brilliant ideas as to how they should handle this. If there's 60,000 pilots in the country, and if a good chunk of them just said this is unacceptable, we need to just stop and figure out what this is and get the language clarified. It would probably be sorted out fairly quickly. But you're putting a lot of pressure on individuals, coercive pressure, I would argue, when their jobs are tied to it. And it's very, very difficult to walk out of the office and think, well, I guess I'm not flying as of the end of the month.
Ultimately, the solution seems to be collective action. Whether through unions, MPs, or official channels, pilots and the public must push back to ensure privacy and safety are protected. And so this pilot lays out a few options to do so.
On the website that we have there's a number of options. There's different email addresses you can contact. I would say this is in the best interest of the airlines as well, and commercial pressure would certainly help. I would say our medical system, most would agree, is wheezing at times on the verge of collapse in different sectors. So it's prone to massive delays. It's prone to sometimes, unfortunately, misdiagnosis and otherwise. And if an individual finds themselves in a position where they lose their medical category erroneously, it's going to be a long time before they get back, and we're already very short of pilots in this country. So I think it's in the best interest of everybody to do this properly and carefully. I would say also engage your members of parliament. We've had productive conversations with a number of MPs who are concerned, and there's some things going on behind the scenes with that as well. So certainly, if you're a pilot, I would talk to, if you're represented by a union, I would talk to them. I'd talk to your MP. There's some other privacy commissioner and otherwise that we've suggested people get a hold of. Is we really want to think outside our individual silos, whether those are employment or otherwise, and think of how is this going to affect the country as a whole? How is this going to affect someone in another industry? So if it doesn't affect you right now, if this is some sort of test case to increase biometric access for the government, then maybe it's worth thinking about and keeping an eye out.
Transport Canada has since circulated a revised privacy notice for pilot medical certification, although it is unclear if this is a draft or final version. The update narrows data sharing to aggregate information, softens language around suspensions, and limits third-party access to medical details only. Federal MP Dan Albas has weighed in, sending a letter to Transport Canada on behalf of Canadian pilots, calling for a suspension of the policy and a full review over privacy concerns and a lack of consultation. Airline Pilots Association Canada suggests the changes largely address the issue, but some pilots who are organizing at pilotscanada77.com say that the revisions still represent an unacceptable intrusion into their private medical information. For updates, you can visit that same website. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. Governments across the world have started to roll out digital ID policies that call for the invasive collection of biometric markers and things like vaccination status. In Canada, the federal government, two of the busiest airports, and the largest airline have partnered alongside the World Economic Forum for the implementation of the Known Traveler Digital Identity Project. If you'd like to keep your ear to the ground on this topic and join in resisting this compelling solicitation of your data, head over to stopdigitalid.com and sign our petition. That's stopdigitalid.com.